This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was getting frustrated by your forms. Now Taxes is uploading your forms with a snap, and a TurboTax expert will do your taxes for you. One who's backed by the latest tech, which cross-checks millions of data points for absolute accuracy. All of which makes it easy for you to get the most money back, guaranteed. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10, place your first bet on any game, and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.
The Athletic.
One hot minute for Red Hot Rowland. Porsche on point and on pole. Gate crasher de Vries spoils block party, and spectre of failure haunts Jaguar. All this and more coming up in the Race Formula E podcast. Hello, I'm your host Andrew Vanderberg, and joining me as ever is jet-lagged and altitude sicknesses Sam Smith. But we have a very special guest today, probably one of the people that had the most to celebrate coming out of the weekend, and that is Nissan team principal Tommaso Volpe. Tommaso, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here.
Now, fantastic weekend for you and for the team and for Oliver in particular, taking a great win. But when he was in the middle of his attack mode and we had the safety car again, what went through your head? Was it, oh no, not again?
Exactly. You're quoting me. I thought about exactly that. It was like, not again, like in Sao Paulo. But then when we saw that the safety car was meant to go in very quickly, we thought that we could still have an opportunity there. And this is what happened at the end.
So there was, just over 85 seconds left. What did you make of how Oliver drove over that lap and a half?
Well, we knew he had the advantage of the attack mode, but we also knew that we had 3 Porsche powertrains in front of us and very strong drivers. So it was not obvious that he would have been able to lead the race at that point with only 1 minute and something attack mode left on that specific track. However, we were expecting to be on the podium, but Oliver, being Oliver, he came with his magic, and I think he did some very, very, very great moves, and this is how we end up winning the race. So it was very exciting to watch, by the way.
Oh, it was brilliant. I thought he did an absolutely fantastic job. He just got the balance between being aggressive and making sure he got the moves done. But it would have been very easy to be too aggressive, damage the car or something, and then throw away that opportunity.
Absolutely. I think there were some very aggressive moves, but overall quite clean. And all the 4 drivers involved were very clean in racing at that point. So I think at the end we had just the entertainment part without any drama. And he played very well for us, winning the race at the end.
That's 2 races in a row that we've had now with these safety cars potentially influencing the result. When you come to do your race preparation, your run-throughs, are you starting to factor that in a bit more now when you think about the tactics for attack mode?
Yeah, I guess this is not dissimilar to any other team. You always consider the possibility to have a safety car, and you try to anticipate a couple of scenarios about when specifically in the race this could happen and how to react. Of course, we could not expect this to happen at the very end of the race, when our strategy was to take the attack mode quite late. And at that point, we were feeling quite comfortable that the end of the race would have been with our 6 minutes attack mode. So at that point, probably was not really expected, but you cannot anticipate everything in a race, obviously. But at the end, he played well for us.
Tommaso, I spoke to a few of your rivals after the win, and they were genuine in the praise for how it was achieved and pulled off. It was a sort of an ambush, really, which had elements of luck. But a lot of people said to me that you had gambled, that it'd been a big gamble, and I know there is an element of that with leaving the second attack quite late. But to me, it was a calculated gamble and a well sort of executed one. But also the fact, I don't think you would consider that a lucky win. And I wrote as much afterwards. How do you feel about it? Because yes, there is inherently elements of luck, but it didn't feel like a lucky win to me. Did it to you?
It didn't. No, I don't think it was a lucky win. Of course, there are some elements of luck and some elements of bad luck during the race. You have some moments where a car in front of you might have made a different move and you would have gained from it, or vice versa. You lose because something happened. So, of course, you might say that in a specific moment you've been lucky or not lucky. But overall, if you look at the overall race, I don't think it was a win by luck. For sure not. Taking the attack mode very late was part of our strategy, and we were not gambling or anything. Of course, as I said before, we were not expecting a safety car to come at that point. On the contrary, when we saw it, we thought that our race was over, because we would have finished in fourth position and maybe have the possibility to challenge Dennis for the podium, but not more than that. So the fact that the safety car went back earlier and gave us the opportunity to win the race was not even a given neither, because in fact Oliver had to overtake 3 cars in 1 lap, more or less. And even if he had the attack mode, there were 3 very strong drivers in that specific circuit. It was not easy.
Yeah.
So I think you can say some elements were luck, some elements were bad luck, and overall the fact that Oliver won the race was not definitely a win by luck.
I think most people agree that Porsche are the favourites, and I think that was underlined with their performance during the race. I mean, their pace was good, their efficiency just seems to be slightly ahead of the likes of yourselves and Jaguar and some of the others as well, particularly DS at the moment. What does that tell you about the extra work you've got to do to try and get on to that level? Because on each of 2 very different circuits, Porsche have proved on 1 lap pace and race pace pretty much that they just feel like a really even stronger entity than they were last season.
Yeah, Porsche seems particularly strong this season. Obviously, the area where we have to focus on now is on the control systems, on the whole softwares. And to be honest with you, there is a good news and the bad news for us after these couple of races, but I would focus mainly on Mexico. The good news is that our package is potentially very strong, and I think we showed it in Mexico and in Sao Paulo. However, in the second free practice, when the grip was not as good because the tarmac was wet, we could see that we still have a lot to do on the control systems, because we could not really extract the best performance from the car, and because obviously the lack of grip. And this, in a way, shows that we still have to improve a lot to be competitive with the best cars, specifically Porsche on this circuit. But on the other hand, it shows us that the margin for improvement is still very big for us. And so I would say that if we do well our job in improving on those areas, probably we can try to fight with Porsche and others for the championship this year.
And that was going to be my next point. Do you consider yourselves to be in a championship fight now? Do you think this is a battle that you can wage throughout the season and really take it to them?
Well, this season you have 3 championships. You have the manufacturer, the team, and the drivers' championship. So I would say that we must consider ourselves a competitor and a challenger for at least one of those championships this season. So the answer is yes. For sure, we need to fight for at least one of these championships until the end of the season.
And the work you've identified that you need to do, how feasible is that? Obviously, there's limited track running, but how much can you do back in the factory to close that gap?
Well, you can do a lot. What is not always easy is if you're going to the right direction or not.
Yeah.
So there is a lot you can do, but then there is always a little bit of unknown on if you are really giving the right direction to your development. Because sometimes you might have some inputs and you interpret some needs in a way that is not 100% what you really need. Because every circuit might present different challenges compared to what you have done in the past. Of course, we know very well some races, but with the new car and so much new things coming up this season, it would be a little bit more difficult to be 100% sure what it should be the development direction compared to season 10, for instance, that you have the same car for the second season. But definitely there is a, I wouldn't say a lot, but there is quite a solid part of development that is still coming up. So if we do things right and in the right direction, for sure we can make the car more and more competitive and we can fight with the best.
Tommaso, you mentioned the teams championship and the manufacturers as well. You know, a team is a team, and you need 2 drivers to be at the front and battling for victories. Norman's had a particularly unlucky start to the season and hasn't had a result to speak of yet, particularly. Are you confident that Norman can contribute meaningfully to your points total for this season?
100%. I'm sure that he will contribute massively to the result of the team this season, because we have seen the data. The final result of a race is very important, but it's not the only thing that we see. And we know that he has a pace which is not that far from Oliver, which is even more encouraging when you think that for him is the first time with us. Okay, it's the second stint, but let's say it's not the second season in a row like for Oliver. So we can see he's doing already a very good job, despite he has been with us only for a few months. And so I'm 100% sure that he will deliver. And to be honest, in Mexico, his pace was good. We compromised his group for quali as a team, so he didn't have much to do with his poor performance in the group. And so once we compromised his qualifying, of course, it was nearly impossible to execute a very strong recovery on this circuit.
It's a double header in Jeddah coming up next. Obviously, having 2 races so closely together has the ability to sort of really reshape the way that the championship's playing out. How are you feeling going into that? Obviously, riding on the crest of a wave, but is it a circuit that you feel that your package is going to be suited to?
Well, if you look at the fact that grip should be good, despite the sand, we don't know how much sand there will be on the circuit, but on paper, let's say we should perform well. Plus, I would expect that our package will be able to perform well on every circuit, unless when we have a problem of grip. And even there, as I said before, we are working to improve this area of the car. Jeddah will be new for everyone, so of course is a steeper learning curve for everyone. There will be the pit boost, so something very intrusive in an event very intrusive in the race, so which will change a lot the way we need to approach the race in one of the races, of course. So it's difficult to say, yes, we go there and we will score strong points for sure, but we have to be confident. And looking at the last two races and how strong the package looked in the last two races, there is no reason why I shouldn't expect us to come back from this double header in an even better position in the championship.
A quick one on the pit boost, Tommaso. Are you confident in the reliability of the system and that's not going to impact upon the outcome of the race?
From what we have seen in the last test, there were not many issues. So yes, from the technical point of view, I'm pretty confident that there shouldn't be any issue. What could be a little bit confusing at the very beginning for any team is how to maximize this into the race strategy. So I think it will be more like something to learn during the season, how to make the best strategy possible using the pit boost. Of course, we have done a lot of simulations and we are doing a lot of training about it, but every time you have something so intrusive in a race event, as you know, there will always be a scenario that you haven't anticipated, or a way to plan the pit boost in a different way, etc., etc. So it will be a steep learning curve, and I think this is not different from any team, but it will be interesting to see how teams will start using it.
Do you think teams will deploy it in an attacking way or in a sort of efficiency way? What's the pros and cons?
Well, this depends also on the race, on the number of laps, on the circuits. I think it depends on many things. I cannot give you an answer now on Jeddah because we just started doing our job and we don't have all the information yet. But I don't know. I cannot give you an answer now. We don't have enough information to take the decision yet. But definitely, once we have all the information, we will decide which one.
Talking of unexpected intrusions, Tommaso, you lost a performance engineer on Sunday morning, which was unfortunate. Asia Sebastian Gilardo was taken to hospital and had to have his appendix removed, if I'm not wrong, and woke up from the said operation with Oliver Rowland and a big shiny trophy. That's quite a story he's going to have for his grandkids one day.
Yes, that was unfortunate, and it was exactly the day of the race, and not one day before, not one day after. So it was really. First of all, the most important thing is that at the end it was just a normal procedure. Of course, annoying to do this 1,000 kilometers far from home, but everything was under control, and we managed everything very well. So he was feeling very, very reassured since the very beginning, and everything went well. So this is the most important thing, and he is now already back on his way back home.
That's good news. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I think at the very beginning we thought, okay, priority is to manage everything correctly for himself, and then priority 2 was to organize ourselves, bearing in mind that of course he was missing. Then I think a mix of two things made the result at the end. One, because he's a very good perfo engineer, he had planned everything very well. So in a way, we were not starting unprepared because he did a job to prepare everything in his own absence. And secondly, our team is very talented, so we share tasks in a very efficient way, and everything went well. Of course, we don't want to do it again because you never know. But I think the team coped very well with this, and as you can see, the strategy was executed very well, and the preparation of the race in terms of setup and everything was done very well. And at the end, we even won the race. But definitely, it was something that at the very beginning of the day put us a little bit under additional stress.
Have you considered removing organs from the drivers to try and maximise performance, the weight of the package?
No, I made a joke though, because I asked him, what is this thing with the Spanish that they need to have their appendices removed to win a race? and he laughed and he said, yes, it comes with us, with our nationality.
Very good.
Oh, Tommaso, congratulations once again. Let's hope for less dramatic circumstances for the next couple of races. But thank you so much for joining us, and all the best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much, and see you soon.
I use the New York Times Games app every single day.
I love playing Connections.
With Connections, I need to twist my brain to see the different categories.
I think I know this connection. Look, Bath is a city in England, Sandwich is a city in England, Reading is a city in England, and I'm going to guess Derby is a city in England.
I started Wordle 194 days ago, and I haven't missed a day.
The New York Times Games app has all the games right there.
I absolutely love Spelling Bee. I always have to get Genius.
I've seen you yell at it and say that should be a word.
Totally should be a word.
Sudoku is kind of my version of lifting heavy weights at the gym.
At this point, I'm probably more consistent with doing the crossword than brushing my teeth.
When I can finish a hard puzzle without hints, I feel like the smartest person in the world.
When I have to look up a clue to help me, I'm learning something new.
It gives me joy every single day.
Start playing in the New York Times Games app.
You can download it at nytimes.com/games app.
Great to hear from Tommaso then. An excellent result for the team. You suggested there were some people who thought it was a bit lucky. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I was a bit conflicted actually, because naturally the question I suppose is, would he have caught and passed them had there not been a safety car? He had that 6 minutes. He left the big tranche of his attack mode to the end of the race. I think he would have caught them, but the problem was that he was already down on energy. So the Porsches were more efficient during the bulk of the race, 3/4 of the race, and had an advantage. So whether or not he'd been able to actually utilise what he had with the all-wheel drive and overtake the Porsches, I'm not sure. And sort of jury's out on that one. The attack mode, the extra 50 kilowatts was less potent than it was at Sao Paulo, and that was a consequence of both the usable energy that was allowed for the race and the fact that it was one lap extra than last year's race. Always difficult to overtake at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, remember. So that the energy targets were greater than they were last season. But having said that, we did see that off the Peraltada that you could really get a good traction and get a good position into that first corner, which was made tighter, by the way. They just made it a little bit tighter on entry for that corner, so it's a bit more of a overtaking proposition for the drivers. But yeah, so certainly an element of luck in the fact that he was able to have at least sort of 80 seconds of the attack mode at the end. And I think he might owe the Mexican marshals a few mezcals or beers or cervezas or whatever, because they did an incredible job to get Beckman's car out the way so quickly.
That was gone in a flash, wasn't it? It's brilliant.
We've not always seen that, have we?
No.
So they did a really good job. I spoke to Scott Elkins afterwards in the pit lane, and he sort of testified to that they did an amazing job, and that was beneficial for Rowland to at least get that 80 seconds. But then the key was making the moves on that first lap before his attack petered out.
That's the thing for me. There was nothing lucky about the way he pulled it off. It would have been very easy for him to misjudge one of those moves.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, the safety car was initially bad for him, but then actually was good within the twinkling of an eye. I wouldn't call it lucky. I'd call it a calculated gamble, as I put it to Tommaso, and a calculated gamble in the sense of leaving the attack so late, but then getting the chance to pull it off. But look, if you make three really good overtaking manoeuvres like Rowland did, particularly the Wehrlein one made it, because if Wehrlein had have defended more, and I kind of expected him to go right to the inside of that hairpin, then Ollie might have been a bit stuffed, because then you've really got until where he overtook Da Costa into the Foro Sol, and by that time Da Costa may have been a second up. Ultimately, Rowland was 4 seconds behind the Porsches when the safety car came out, and the attack mode takes 5.5 seconds. I doubt that he would have won that race. I think he probably would have finished third. But he did it, and they keep doing these calculated gambles. They do a few a season, and it does pay off for them. So yeah, it fully deserved. A small element of luck, but they pulled it off, and they did such a great job. It was really interesting, actually, afterwards to put that to Oliver, who was still on the crest of a wave, having just come off the podium. And this is what he had to say about how he executed those three manoeuvres, and how the whole parameters of his race played out in that sort of exciting period.
I mean, talk about a roller coaster of emotions. When the safety car came out, you just thought it was all over again, didn't you?
I was like Sao Paulo. I just took it at the big advantage. And then, all of a sudden it's gone. So I was pretty pissed off, to be honest. But again, I think it balanced itself out, because when it came in, it allowed me to close the gap, which I think I would have done. But the extra benefit I had was that it brought the targets up, which helped me. Because I think had I caught them, I'm not sure I could have raced them with the energy I had.
Purely what efficiency? I mean, they were a bit better efficiency, weren't they? That would have made a difference.
Bit frustrating because my balance was quite good. It wasn't bad. So we need to I mean, the one thing I would say is they've always been really strong here. So hopefully there's like a bit of that 1 or 2% is a bit in that. The problem I also had is that I had to fight these cars that kept coming. I had to use a little bit, but also my balance went away a bit after 10 laps. I had a really good balance in the first 10 laps. Like I could pass quite easily Jev, and I probably could have passed both of them at some point, but I didn't really want to. And the rears went away a little bit, and then I suffered a little bit from then on.
And when you knew you had to get it done on that lap, when it went green, were you thinking ahead where you could do it?
I was confident I could maybe get one into turn 1, but it was Jake and can be quite aggressive. So when I got 1, and then honestly with Pascal, like I put my nose to try and put him off, and it worked because he left me a bit of a gap, and then I was able to pass him. And then with Antonio, I kind of knew that was going to run out around the start line, so I was like, I'm going in, like I'm going to try. And obviously I wasn't sure I was going to stop in turn 12 when I braked on the dirt. It was but it's not something you think about, it went from coming around turn 14 going, what a waste of time with the safety car coming out, to boom, the lights went off, and it was like, right, let's go. You didn't have time to plan it, it was just all instant.
Nice job. Nice tonic for Atia as well, obviously, taking L, and good. Going to go and see him tonight, and I just champagne on his bed.
I just said to the girls that I want to definitely go and see him before my flight, so yeah, I mean, he does an absolutely great job for me, and obviously he had to leave this morning. He still managed to come and say, look, I've changed this, but I'm going to the hospital. And he had the operation at 1:30, so he didn't see the race.
Yeah, Marie was texting me. All right, nice one, Ollie.
So is this Rowland versus the Porsches for the title now? Because on rule pace, as Tommaso was saying, the Porsches appear to be a little bit of a step ahead. But Nissan are the next ones up, aren't they? I think they've overtaken Jaguar for that mantle.
Yeah, early days, obviously, but that's what it feels like at the moment. It feels like the Porsche drivers versus Rowland. I still think Dennis could be a factor because he's got the same package as Costa and Wehrlein. They were just a tiny little bit off. Dennis, he did lead for a period, didn't he? But it just didn't quite have the pace of the factory cars, and I think he hurt a little bit with his front left in phases of that race. But yeah, going back to Rowland, he just has the aura of somebody who can match the step that Nissan have taken with the Gen 3 Evo package, and motivation-wise, and just what he brings to races. I mean, he's super hard to overtake, irrespective of what mode he's in. He's a doughty fighter. He's tough as nails, and he feels like now the driver who's got a driver that has got the full package. I don't think he quite had that in his early years in Formula E, and he's learnt what Formula E is all about, how to develop a car, and pretty much everyone I speak to just really waxes lyrical about what Rowland brings. I thought it was really interesting in qualifying that he, in his semi-final, when he lost out to, I'm just trying to remember who he lost out to. Was it Wehrlein? It was, wasn't it?
One of the Porsches
in the semis, yeah. And he just lost out to, but I don't think it was by much, but he I think he made a small error, and he was really hard on himself after that. He was pretty fed up with it, and he was starting in fourth place in a race that you can overtake in. So that to me is the kind of measure of a champion elect, or certainly a championship protagonist, that he's really sort of hammering himself after a relatively small error in qualifying.
Before we get into dissecting the rest of the race, I've got to say I'm genuinely loving this new format. I think attack mode with the Gen 3 Evo is working perfectly now. It gives just enough of a performance gain, and that you get these really exciting bursts of tactical differences between them. And we, even though we're sort of having a little bit of the pack racing, is nothing like as bad as it was before, and it's making drivers like Rowland, who can flex their muscles when needed to, come to the fore. I think all round it's worked a charm.
Yeah, definitely, and a good gauge for that is the live crowd. So Mexico City is the biggest crowd that Formula E have. There's 40,000, genuine 40,000 that was there at the weekend, and the Foresol's packed. And actually, the grandstands opposite the media centre were fairly full as well. And pretty much every lap there was a roar and cheering going on.
You can hear it on the telly.
Yeah, it's just superb. I mean, the drivers were hearing it in their helmets, which is brilliant. And I think if you get that reaction, you've got something right. And the last two Mexican E-Prix have been a bit boring, let's say. There just wasn't much going on, a bit processional. But this year, it was just the right mix. It wasn't mad three abreast going into a corner like we've had at Portland and Misano. The cocktail, the FIA got right on this occasion with the 1 lap extra, and we've also got the attack mode, as we know, which wasn't as powerful as it had been at Sao Paulo, but that's going to be track specific for the whole season. But look, don't get used to it, because we're going to have one race with pit boosting, which will cause complete mayhem in Jeddah. And then, we don't know what the cocktail of usable energy and everything is for the other race in Jeddah. So yeah, it's going to be a mixture this season. I think there's going to be...
I'm guessing this race 2 that's going to have the pit boost, is it?
Well, it's not defined yet. I spoke to Pablo Martino from the FIA, and he said, it shouldn't be taken as a given that it would be the second race. They could surprise and put it in the first race. My hunch is that they will do the second race on the Saturday with the pit boosting. But let's see. It's going to change everything. It's going to mix everything up again. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing globally, we'll have to be a bit agnostic on that.
Yeah.
But it's certainly... The one thing nobody wants is for a spec part or a spec piece of equipment, such as the pit boosting equipment, to curtail people's races or change the outcome of races in a sort of derogatory fashion. So let's see. I mean, we've got to give it a chance.
I'm choosing to be positive because I'm enjoying it at the moment, so I'm going to let that spirit flow through the rest of this show. Do you think, how will Porsche view this result? Do they see it as a loss, or the fact that they had a lockout at the front row, which is really quite rare in Formula E, just be chalk this one off to experience? They still got a ton of points and just keep on rolling on.
Yeah, I think with the space of time, I think if you ask them, which I did an hour after the race, they were a little bit grumpy. On publicly they weren't, but you could sense that it was a bit flat in the pit box.
It was a race lost, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Front row lockout, and they finished second and third. So not a disaster. I think in the general scheme of things, the bigger picture, it's a very good result for them. 33 points, very strong. 1 lap pace is incredible, and their race pace is extremely good, better than the opposition. So there's so many positive takeaways from it. Drivers wise, there was an interesting discrepancy on their feelings and their thoughts afterwards. Certainly Pascal Wehrlein was not as ebullient about the result as Antonio Felix da Costa was, and you can completely get that, can't you? But I think again in the context, and Pascal mentioned this to me, that actually he was a week before Mexico, still a bit sore from his shunt at Sao Paulo. His doctor told him not to travel to the FIA Awards in Rwanda before Christmas. So he was still feeling the effects of that.
I wonder how much that advice cost him.
Allegations, V2B, allegations. No, and they rebuilt his car as well. So that car was, it's been evaluated whether it can be salvaged, and the team were building up a new Porsche 998X electric in the paddock on the Thursday. And that always plays on your mind, doesn't it, as a driver, whether everything's been, is going to be the same or feel the same. And even sometimes psychologically, if you're in a different tub, sometimes you just feel differently. But everything was absolutely superb from the point of view of the pace and how everything was handled in qualifying, and Wehrlein was as quick as ever in that car, in that 94 car, and he looks entirely capable of defending his title.
On the flip side of that, what an utter disaster for Jaguar. Evans crashing out, and Cassidy 2 races in, no points, and effectively nowhere. I don't think he appeared on the TV coverage at all.
Yeah, uncharted territory for Cassidy, isn't it? 0 points after 2 races. It's usually Evans who makes a slow start, and look, Evans had a poor weekend, really. I mean, not total disaster in the sense that there was pace, but they had to work hard to find it, particularly when it was damp on Saturday morning in that free practice session. They were absolutely nowhere when it was at its wettest, and then they changed things, and eventually Cassidy was P2 in that session. But prior to that, in the dry, they were sort of chasing their tails a little bit. They did make progress, and they had some pace. Both drivers made it through to the dual phases, but of course Cassidy was pinged for this throttle pedal map infringement, which is a very complex way of saying that there was they went over the tolerance of what was allowed from a traction point of view, traction control point of view, not overt traction control, because that's not allowed in the championship. But I
deliberately didn't ask you a question about this because I knew the answer was going to be boring.
Yeah, I could go into all kinds of things on this. I mean, I've learned jargon that they use, like
I don't care.
like was it buckets and corridors and tolerance corridors? Seriously, it's a lot of it's quite mind-numbing, but still a little bit interesting to those geeks.
Well, it's the impact that's interesting. Him starting so far back. I had him set for like minor points places, some 7th to 10th, somewhere around that. But he moved up, but not by much. I was very surprised.
Yeah, but as I said before, the attack mode wasn't as it was in Sao Paulo because of the characteristics of the track and just the nature of the energy targets. You could blow your brains out and on your attack mode and hammer it, but you're going to suffer at the same time. You are still spending energy, so you do have to still manage things. And he just got a bit stuck as well. Did make some progress, but not enough to make points. So there's a lot of work to do there at Jaguar. Certainly don't have the pace. I would say at the moment they feel in that sort of joint third place with DS at the minute in terms of the manufacturers. Certainly Porsche and Nissan are ahead of them, and they do have work to do. But the good news for Jaguar is that there is a month until Jeddah, and then after that there's 2 months before we then go to Homestead. So they have time, they have test days left, they have a lot that they can try and turn things around for the second half of the season. But at this stage, the Sao Paulo win for Evans feels like a bit of a spike, bit of an anomaly in terms of the absolute hierarchy and the pace. And Evans's race ended in disaster when he clouted the back of Muller, who had a power cut. Actually, Evans was complaining on the radio that he just stopped. What it was? Yeah, he had a cut, and Evans just couldn't quite react and glance the back of him, and that was it. So no points, and that's the first time since Jakarta 2023 that there has been no points in a single event for Jaguar, which is a rarity, isn't it? But if you're gonna have a streak like that, it's always going to end one day. And unfortunately for Jaguar TCS Racing, it was Mexico last weekend.
So you mentioned there that DS vying with Jag for the sort of third place in that hierarchy of the manufacturers, and Jev's again delivering in qualifying as he always does. Are they legitimate podium contenders, or are they just making the most of people like Jaguar underperforming?
I don't think they are podium contenders yet if everyone's reliable and on the track. They got really good one lap pace, which they generally had last season. they're just lacking a bit in ultimate efficiency. I think the way that they can run their races is not how Porsche and certainly Nissan can at the moment in terms of getting the best out of their technical package, their powertrain. They work together. Gunter and Verne worked together in that race in sort of tandem and did it reasonably well. I had a chat with Phil Charles after the race, their deputy team principal and technical leader, and he said that they had to be completely on point on everything and make everything work. And I think the vast majority of that was achieved, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to get them near the podium. They eventually got that 5th and 6th, but it wasn't not a competitive 5th and 6th in the sense that they were a threat to those ahead of them. So on one level, they'll be happy that they sort of operationally achieved everything they needed to, but obviously not that happy in the fact that they're a little bit off, to say the least, off Porsche. The question is it something that they can rectify? I think Jaguar feel to me, which Phil Charles won't want to hear, but Jaguar feel to me more likely to make a step. It feels like they're chasing more, if you know what I mean, rather that DS kind of know what their deficiency and they know that they probably can't change it, which would likelihood is that it's the homologated part of the car, which is the powertrain mainly. So that's not to say that they can't win a race this year. I think they can, but I think they'll have to be very clever and very cute to achieve that. But look, they've got Jean-Eric Verne and Max Gunter, so I think if there is a sniff of a chance through guile and taking a few risks, then they'll certainly do that. I think it feels like they've got to do something different in their races to actually being with the chance of stopping that sort of famine of wins, which stretches back to February 2023. So it's going to be 2 years, isn't it, by the time we get to Jeddah, that they've not won a race. And knowing Jay Penske a little bit and how competitive he and his team are, then that's going to hurt even more. Race by race now, they're going to be looking at trying to get that victory.
We speculated pre-season that the new rules might benefit drivers like Stoffel van Dorn and Nick de Vries, and there they are popping up with 7th and 8th places. So, decent results for them, although I think de Vries didn't get himself on Sam Bird's Christmas card list.
No, he didn't. He's not. It's funny thing with de Vries. He's really not popular with the majority of the other drivers. But honestly, do you think he cares? I doubt it very much. He is very, very direct, shall we say? And he was in Mexico City as well. He was. He blocked Sam Bird in qualifying, got in the way, but from what I hear, it wasn't particularly deliberate. I think there was just a miscommunication with his team on what the strategies were with himself and Bird in the neon McLaren. And the race, he sort of put one up on the inside of Bird going into the chicane, and that in turn kind of nudged Bird into de Vries' teammate Mortara, who initially thought it was de Vries. So there was a real sort of confusion about that incident. But what it meant was that ultimately Mortara got a puncture, so it ruined his race through Bird's contact. Bird got a penalty, but the actual trigger for it appeared to be de Vries, who sort of, came away from it sort of clean and was able to get that 8th place and score some more points. Mahindra probably deserved a bit more, should have got a bit more out of the weekend.
It doesn't reflect their pace, does it?
It wasn't an easy weekend for them. Mortara did get into the duels again, and there is good pace there, but they are certainly behind obviously the Porsches and the Nissans, but they're still a little bit off the DSs, which I think they'll start to be eyeing if they can get near them quite soon. And they certainly feel like a team that they're able to give to nibble at DS Penske in some races this season. But yeah, I think Bird was relatively unimpressed by de Vries, but that's with the fog of war, isn't it? Sometimes in Formula E, it does happen. But yeah, de Vries' past, I think, sort of doesn't help him sometimes in these situations.
And Nico Muller and Jake Hughes got their first points of the season. Zane Maloney didn't score, but a really strong showing in that low Yamaha for the rookie. I was impressed with him over the weekend.
Yeah, he did a super job. He was really quick, executed qualifying very well. that team is still facing lots of issues there. You know, they had a sort of myriad of problems in Sao Paulo and also in Mexico. Between the races, they'd had many software updates and changes that have to be evidenced on the track as well. And I think a few of those probably fell short the weekend and cost them not time, just sort of direction, I think. But Maloney got that lap together extremely well in qualifying. I spoke to Till Bechtelsheimer on the way out of the track, actually, and he said that Maloney made a couple of small mistakes and could have been knocking on the door of getting through to a duel, which would be incredible if a Lola Yamaha got through to the duel phase. So, it didn't happen for him in the race because of an incident with Beckman, which we'll probably discuss. But you know, I don't envisage Lola getting points in the first half of the season. If they do, it'd be a bit of a surprise.
Talking of not getting any points, no score for either McLaren or Envision, but Envision in particular having another stinker of a season. I mean, what's going on there?
Yes. They need a big result, don't they? They feel like a team who need a big result. They picked up at the end of last season. They came into this season. They're in the customer dynamic of not having many test days. I think Freins got one day before they went to Jarama. A little bit of misfortune, though, in the sense that both Freins and Buemi had the same throttle pedal map sanction that Cassidy had. And that's really nothing to do with Envision. That is supplied.
That's a supplier issue,
yeah,
isn't it?
I mean, it's a homologated thing through Jaguar, so there's very little they could do about that. What that meant then was that with both of them starting at the rear of the field, both Buemi and Freins had a similar strategy in the sense that they were going to save a lot during the early part of the race and then try and give it a big burn at the end. But with the safety cars, they just got sidesteps really by the safety cars and lost some attack mode time when they came out, and obviously the race then became flat out, so where they were just stuck. And Buemi got a penalty as well, a 5-second penalty for not being able to take his attack because he left it so late that when the second safety car came out he wasn't able to take it, and I think Di Grassi got screwed on that level as well.
Well, he had about 15 minutes left, didn't he?
I think he did, probably. It was,
I don't know how long they thought the race was going to be, but it was never had enough.
Yeah, it's all a learning process, isn't it? But Envision, yeah, it didn't go well, but it was really not of their own making in that sense. But still, that doesn't hide the sort of desperation of coming away with 0 points. And obviously, when you look at the points table, again, they're in the lower reaches, aren't they? They're ninth at the moment with 6 points
ninth
from the first race. So they need a big weekend in Jeddah, entirely capable of doing it, and there's no reason why they can't. And they'll also benefit from the fact that Jaguar had a relatively poor start to the season, or certainly Mexico, and that they'll be keener than ever to try and test and develop and find the deficiencies that they're facing now at the minute, and that'll rub off on Envision. So let's see where they are after Jeddah.
So I'm going to hold my hands up. I genuinely thought in the early part of the season with the Porsche previous generation powertrain that Cupra Kiro were potential dark horses, but clearly either the difference between the two powertrains is massive, or running a Formula E team isn't as simple as just plugging the best powertrain in, because they're really they're not quite gelling at the moment, are they?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter. I think it's a bigger learning process, a bigger understanding technically of how to get the best out of the previous Porsche 999X electric, which I think
it's easy for you to say.
Yeah, I think they just that they have to strengthen the team, which they are doing. They're advertising for a new technical director and performance engineer and a host of other roles in that team. That's not to say that the incumbent people aren't good, because they obviously are, to get best out of the cars, which haven't always been competitive over the last couple of seasons. So they've got a good team. It's just that when the level steps up, they need to add to it, and that's what they're doing. It didn't work out at all for them at the weekend. Beckman had the stronger of the days on Saturday, qualified reasonably well. And then his race was quite strong, actually. He was on the periphery of the top 10 and looking like he might have a sniff of a point, and then turned into turn 12 and found Zane Maloney coming down the inside. And on first view, it looked like Maloney had just wiped Beckman out, broke his steering, but actually it was much of a 50-50, to be honest with you. Maloney was on the attack, and Beckman did give him room, but Maloney just missed his apex a tiny bit. It was just unfortunate. It's
classic rookie error.
He just touched him, and obviously when it's loaded up, the steering gets bent and broken. I think the stewards got that completely right. It was just a racing accident, but it scuppered Beckman, and that was unfortunate because I think he deserved something out of his drive. But yeah, a lot of work for Cupra Kiro to do, and had an interesting chat with some of the Kiro people over the weekend, and they got big plans. Actually, they certainly are determined to succeed in Formula E, and they realise that it's going to be a long-term vision that they're going to try and pull off with Kiro. And I think really probably best reserving judgment on Cupra Kiro until we get sort of Monaco and understand where they are. And Dan Ticktum's race was effectively over after the first lap when he was in a sort of 3-1 won't go situation with I think it was Van Dorn and one of the Lolas, I think Maloney, on lap 1 going into the stadium, and that punctured his left rear, and it was pretty much over for him. So yeah, they'll be doing a lot of work. So like Jaguar, they'll be going back to the factory trying to find out how they can get the best out of this car. I'm sure they will, but I don't think it will be until mid-season time.
Before we crack into a little bit of paddock breaking news, given that it's a permanent facility, why don't we have a double header in Mexico? It seems like a no-brainer to me.
It does, doesn't it? A lot of people were asking me that last weekend, so I thought, well, I'll on behalf, in the community spirit, after
all those tickets they could resell for the next day.
Well, I mean, they certainly have discussed it, and they have looked into it, and I spoke to Formula E CEO Jeff Dodds on Saturday morning about why that hasn't happened. And I think really the concern would be that 2 dates kind of dilutes the event in the sense of it being a day out for.
You dilute the overall event.
Yeah, I think so. They get a genuine 40,000.
Because it used to be, when we first went there, that they couldn't do it because the Rolling Stones or somebody was playing the next day, and they needed some, the venue was being turned into a rock arena. But I don't think there was anyone playing on a Sunday.
I do remember that. I do remember the Stones being in town the week after. I reckon Mick would be pretty. He's lithe enough, isn't he, to give it a go in a Gen 3 Evo?
Yeah, I'd get him in it. No problem.
Not sure about Keith, though. Might need to.
I think it might fail.
Might need to put him in the Emotion Club for an hour to loosen up. Ultimately, it's just a worry about diluting it. And, if they end up getting 22,000 per day, it's not quite the same, is it? That massive terrace at the Foro Sol, it just, even if it's half full, it feels a little bit tepid. When it's full, it's, the place rocks. So I think it will stay a single header. But let's see, it's Formula E always trying to evolve the events. But again, it was just superb. I was outside the team garages stalking team principals well into the evening on Saturday, and there was still probably 200 to 300 behind the pits chanting drivers' names and looking for autographs.
I love it.
It's really good. Yeah, it's amazing, and you don't get that many places, do you? That level of dedication.
Nowhere near enough places.
No, so it's fun. Everyone loves going to Mexico, and everybody loves the hospitality, and the sort of the fan engagement and passion. So long may it continue.
And from there, some news about the Jeddah rookie test, apropos of.
Yeah, I mean it was the rookie test. This is distinct from the rookie test. Obviously, the rookie test is a full day of testing, 2 drivers per team. So this is a free practice session. They call it FP0. So it's an additional free practice.
Is it generally called FP0?
It is. Yes. Yeah.
A Pirelli doing a one race as the tyre supplier.
Who can be the hero of the zero session? It's an odd one. I don't quite get it. I don't think the teams really want to do it. There is jeopardy, of course, because it's in one of the race cars. So this is one driver per team. 11 cars. They're doing it at Jeddah this year. They did it at Rome in 23. I can't remember where they did it last year. They did do it, didn't they? Was it Misano? I think it was Misano last year. Yes, so each team has to run a driver that hasn't raced or competed in an official session before in Formula E. So we're looking at certainly Jack Crawford, I think Andretti, Alex Dunn, who was announced as McLaren's development and reserve driver just last weekend. I'm hearing that Jamie Chadwick is likely to turn up for Jaguar because she's already confirmed for the Berlin test in July, and
would make sense.
And it's a 40-minute session, extra tyre allocation. That's all there is to it. It was a bit of a surprise, I think. I'm not sort of heard it on the paddock jungle drums that it was going to happen at Jeddah, but relatively late confirmation. But yeah, 40 minutes of extra running for teams at a new track. So actually, having said that teams don't really want to do it, if you've got a decent driver who can keep it on the black stuff, you can gain and learn quite a lot actually at a new venue for Formula E. So perhaps it will be useful for teams. But that'll definitely happen on the Thursday before the first race in the Corniche in Jeddah.
Well, we mentioned that pit boosting's been introduced for Jeddah, and I'm not prepared to talk about it anymore because I'm enjoying this show. But my favourite section always, of course, is Sam's calendar update, and there are two very exciting names on this list, one new, one returnee. So go on, give the listeners what they want, and give us a calendar update.
Well, let's do the new one first, which was a big surprise and something which I think people will get excited about, is that there was a delegation from Toronto at Mexico City last weekend, and they were meeting with Alberto Longo and Ollie McCrudden to see what the scope might be for a future race. I'm hearing that it's...
I'm up for a Canadian trip.
Yeah,
just saying.
Yeah. Well, Montreal was fantastic, wasn't it? I think that was one of the highlights of Formula E so far, and Toronto has a great heritage, doesn't it, in racing with the IndyCar event.
Well, it could be a second US race by then, of course.
Oh, God, don't go there.
Oh, we're not getting into that. Sorry.
What next? The Greenland E-Prix?
Oh, yeah. Burn, baby, burn.
Toronto would be a great addition, definitely. A really progressive city, one that is imbued in the EV landscape and sustainability. So that would make a whole lot of sense. Obviously, it's easier said than done. But I'm hearing that there is a definite plan to try and get something there for 2027, which would be fun. Looking back at a venue that we've already been to, Cape Town, I'm told is closer than it's ever been to getting back onto the calendar.
Well, if it's on the calendar, I am committing this time because I'm still annoyed that I missed out.
Yeah, it was one of the It was one of the better ones for sure. Great circuit, great city. I mean, amazing city, and lots of vineyards as well for you to be. So
what's not to like?
Exactly. So it's not done, but there is a positive slant on the talks, and I'm told that there is a very good possibility that it could be back. Other venues that Formula E are looking at, Phoenix in Arizona is talking to Formula E about something in the future. Santiago could come back as well, which is fun.
On yet another configuration.
I'm told that it could be the O'Higgins Park, or it's likely to be the O'Higgins Park again, the Derek O'Higgins Park.
Derek O'Higgins Park, of course.
And I think that it ties in with the politics of the city, of course. I think there's been a change. There has been a change, and I think there's a change in philosophy that potentially a big event could come back to O'Higgins Park not in conjunction, but as well as the I can never say it, Lollapalooza rock festival.
Oh yeah,
which they have in Chile as well, a sort of Chilean South American version of the US one.
Well, they still love a bit of rock music over there.
So
that makes sense.
Let's see. There could be. I think there could be quite a decent expansion for 26 and 27, which is what Formula E want to do, and there could be some new names and obviously some new names in there. So all looks quite exciting on that front.
Good stuff. Well, it's a new track, I guess, for you next. Have you been to Jeddah before?
Never been to Jeddah. Be the first time. One other thing I missed off the calendar update. The London Excel has had a contract extension for 2026.
That's good news.
It is very good news. So that would be for 2026. Initial indications are that potentially it could run in August, which would be a talking point for another podcast, I think. Yeah. So
I will be on holiday.
Not that popular with the teams as well, who will be getting
anyone with kids.
The teams will be getting ready for Gen 4 at that stage. So the later it is, the more difficult it becomes for them to get ready for the season. First season of Gen 4, which will come at the end of 26, but that's a long way away. I'm sure we can get at least another half a podcast on rambling about Gen 4 and Excel for the future. But good news for everyone, I think, particularly UK fans, that there's going to be at least two more London E-Prix at the Excel Arena.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you as always, Sam. Of course, don't forget to check out all the latest Formula E news on the-race.com, as well as all of the other podcasts. I think Sam and I will be popping up on the new series of Bring Back V10s, which has just started. Might be too late. If it isn't, try and check out the social media account for that. See if you can still vote for us in the best motorsport podcast category there. I mean, obviously we'll enter the Formula E one, but we want to give the others a chance.
Yeah, we imagine all the we could get into double figures for votes, couldn't we? If we were nominated for anything.
Dare to dream.
There's not a wooden spoon one or anything, is there? We could,
electric whisk, surely.
The electric whisk, lovely.
And on that note, see you later. Bye bye.
The Athletic.
Hello, I'm Ian McIntosh and I'm the host of the Daily Football Briefing. What is the Daily Football Briefing? It's a special 10-minute daily show designed to bring you up to speed with the most important stories from across the football world. Except on Monday mornings when it's 15 minutes and we try to cram in the results, standings and stories from the top 10 leagues on the planet. Or at least the top 10 leagues that I run on a Football Manager save. Follow this show today and you'll never miss another big story again, whether it's news that the Athletic has just broken. David Ornstein, what happened? News from outside the Premier League that other podcasts might ignore.
That is a difficult one to explain, so let's go bit by bit.
Or it's Champions League week and you just need someone to put it all into context.
It's made for a very useful away point in a difficult game in a difficult week.
Listen to the Daily Football Briefing in 2025. It's out every weekday wherever you get your podcasts.